Hello everyone. Today we're going to be renovating Copperdale High School into the infamous Sunnydale High School from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So we're going to get started by bulldozing the lot and starting from scratch, and we begin by doing some terrain editing. The trick with terrain editing is you can't have it too deep, otherwise it actually affects the map view in Copperdale and you'd have like a ton of textures. And I know the Sims team don't actually like that. So instead what we're doing is actually making sure that the terrain is not going to be both too short or too high. So we're going to go ahead and revise that to make it look right, and also what the real Sunnydale High School looks like, both the the fictional location there in the bottom left, and also that's actually a real school. So looking at pictures of the real school and getting the scale of it right, and even making sure all those little details are put in, like the planter boxes. So what makes this high school build really, I suppose, interesting compared to other builds, because this is kind of old news. I meant this build about 2 months ago and just never got around to making the video until now. And as you know, the new pack is about to come out, Growing Together. So this is like, the high school pack is old news, but I still really wanted to post this build because I spent so long building this. I think over 16 hours, and I might have only recorded the first 12 and edited it down. It was like huge chunks that are missing because I was like, I'm not recording me figuring out, certain things. But I suppose the real thing with this high school compared to other high schools is that obviously the one that comes at the game is really empty and way too big for the Sims. There's only 20 Sims that spawn on the lot maximum. It's usually about like 17 students. It's not quite the full, or no, it's 11 students that spawn actually, because each classroom will have 6 desks and there's always 1 seat empty in the second classroom every time I've play tested it. So I was really going into this aware of what the limitations of the game pack were. And I really wanted to build a school that kind of looked super big, which is why we went for Sunnydale High, and at the same time was also small and intimate. So what you're seeing me actually do here first is getting the windows right. I wanted it to really be reminiscent of Sunnydale High. So I was trying to figure out what sign I was going to use. Was I actually going to have a floating ground sign? That's from the pack. We get there eventually, and as you can see, I'm using reference images on the bottom left to help me build the high school, to make sure I get the windows right, because obviously there needs to be plants put underneath the windows. What type of windows are we going to use? And I didn't want to use too many packs because I feel like we probably could have got slightly more accurate windows, but I don't want to use too many packs. So the only pack that this this build uses is obviously high school years. Discover University, because I felt like it was a really good bet that if you're going to buy the high school pack, you probably are all in on university too. And then besides that, just cats and dogs and seasons, because those are 2 of the best selling expansion packs. So there's a really good bet that if you bought high school years, you already own those. So that's all this pack uses. There is a second version on my gallery that has the City Living basketball court, but I literally made a second version for that. So if you don't have City Living, no worries. What you're trying to see me do out now is actually the floor plan of Sunnydale High. On the bottom left is a really hardcore fan of the television show, not me, had created the floor plan. And I think in one of the episodes they must have shown off the floor plan, because obviously it looks accurate, it looks legit. But the tricky thing with this build was that I wanted something that was going to obviously be reminiscent of the high school. You can see I'm doing the cafeteria down there, and those are some reference pictures I took. But at the same time, I had to play really well for the Sims 4 high school, because as I just said, a lot of the builds on the gallery are incredibly detailed. They have like art rooms, all these different types of rooms, but they're always empty because Sims just won't use them. So I wanted something that would visually look big when you load into the game, but actually if we could make it nice and small, so that when there are only about 16 Sims walking around with the principals and the teachers included, it was still going to look kind of packed. And how can we make sure that when Sims are going into the high school, that every part of the high school Sims are walking through their traffic? Usually in a lot of big lots, you're going to find like dead spaces, like that entire corner of the map is like empty, like no one ever goes there. So with this map, it was really being careful about making sure that I was strategically putting classrooms and toilets and different things that I know Sims will always go to at different corners, to making sure they're always walking around the entire building, just to make it feel a bit more lively. So there's a real gameplay focused slant on this. But as you can see, I'm trying to be loyal to the television show of Buffy, so I'm following a lot of reference images, even making sure that the kitchen door was there. That's actually a staff room in this build. But really adding in those Easter eggs that if you're a fan of the television show, you'd appreciate this. I actually hadn't watched the television show in many, many years, like nearly probably 10 years, but I watched it so much as a teenager, I could still remember like the school, what it looked like, and more importantly, what episodes to watch to get the reference images. I knew for the cafeteria to watch Earshot. That's the one where she could hear people's thoughts. And I knew that for like the lounge area to look at season 2, or the bathroom was going to be in the Halloween episode of season 2. Like I watch that show so much, I remembered exactly what episodes to go to when I wanted to find reference pictures of the high school. But between season 1 and season 2 and 3, in season 1 it was super low budget, so I think they were just filming in real locations, whereas in season 2 and 3 they were building sound stages. So there was actually a big change where in season 2, this lounge area was very infamous on the bottom left from season 2. And they're always hanging out there, but I could never picture where that was in the high school, because in the pilot, when they walk in through the front door of Sunnydale High School, that lounge area is nowhere to be seen. And then in the actual fictional floor plan of Sunnydale High, I was like, where am I going to put this? And then from a gameplay perspective, are the Sims even going to use it? So how am I going to get Sims up there to do some, do different tasks? So I thought, having it as a study area where you can prep for exams would be a really good usage for that. And because it is in the main corridor, it's going to be traffic. Sims are going to be walking in and out. So even if Sims aren't going up that platform, Sims are still going to be in the area, so it will feel lively. I think the proudest thing I am of this build is that for the most part there aren't really any dead spots. I've even caught Sims using the gym, which is in a separate building. That's because I think the Sims at the start of the day have a whim to go and use workout equipment. So it was great even getting the Sims there. But then, movies are like, movie magic. It's, Hollywood's all about magic. So obviously when you're picking filming locations, you're not thinking about actual practical floor plans. So the big challenge for me was like figuring out there's all these different windows. And at the edge of the windows were like there, but I was like, there also needs to be a classroom. So what you're actually seeing me is dismember the rooms and moving them all across the map, because what I was trying to do was actually figure out what the legit floor plan was, because there was like plot holes in the fan-made one on the bottom left compared to what I wanted the high school to be. Because again, I'm thinking of like the pilot episode, I'm thinking when they walk into the high school, that kind of recreational center isn't there to the side. And yeah, so like it's a lot of me trying to figure out again what the floor plan's going to be, and at the same time I didn't want any dead spots. So there's actually a lot of play testing. You won't see me play testing in this video, but a lot of times after I kind of furnished the classrooms with basic equipment, I did jump into live mode, and I had like a complete like a testing save file where I was literally just watching how the Sims were moving about and what areas they weren't going to and areas they do going to. So you're going to see this isn't the final floor plan, and I do change it up quite a bit. But I was always thinking about the second Becoming Part 1. That's like episode 21 of season 2. And I was always thinking about when Buffy runs into the high school to catch Angel. And I was like, okay, so she has to run through the hallway and take a left, and then she has to run all the way down there to the library. And like the floor plan didn't make sense in my head. But you can see at this point I've been building for over 2.5 hours, and I was trying to make sure that the back of the school, so the courtyard, was going to look accurate to the television show. Because at a certain point I didn't want to be too much of a slave to a fictional floor plan, because again, it's fictional. It's not actually a real floor plan, because you're using sound stages, so they're building what they need. And when you're watching a show, no one's ever really thinking about the floor plan. It's make-believe. You point the camera there, she runs there, she can be anywhere in the high school. So at this point, you can see that I actually haven't even filmed me creating the library. We're just cutting right to it already being built. I actually thought I could go right beside the cafeteria. This is the original floor plan. It does move, because over here I wanted to add the swimming pool, the aquatic center from the Go Fish episode of season 2. And I was like, maybe I can put it onto that wing of the high school over there. And I was like, maybe that can kind of work out, because for the most part I kind of wanted to keep everything in one building, even though at the end we do turn it into 2 buildings. This is what the bathroom looks like. It's also another plot hole, because they've actually had 2 different filming locations as a bathroom. This is the one that I would have thought of the most from the Halloween episode, because we all remember that when Buffy's looking at some old pictures. But there's also this episode with the Inca mummy girl, and as you can see, the bathroom has a completely different aesthetic to this bathroom. So I decided to go with one aesthetic, and I went for this one because that's the one that you actually see Buffy Summers in, and that's canon, so to speak. So at this point, I haven't even, built the first classroom yet. So a lot of it's guesswork. How is it going to turn out? How is it going to play? So at this point, I'm just putting in basic furniture, because my goal now is to load into the game just to see how it operates. I knew at this point, though, from playing the pack, that there's only about 11 students that are ever in the school, no matter what save file I've used. And I'm sure it's the same for you. And for that reason, I really only wanted to put in the bare minimum because I didn't want there to be too many empty desks. I know a lot of builds on the gallery have 9 desks per classroom, but I was like, look, if only 11 Sims are going to spawn, I'll put in 12, one extra. The only downside I will say from one go of playtesting is after school study session, after school exam prep, I have noticed that sometimes more than 6 Sims will want to join in on that, and I saw one sitting on the floor. But it happens so irregularly, and it only happened in one instance, that I didn't feel overall I didn't want that one instance to overall ruin the 5 days a week of going to class and having a bunch of empty desks. So at this point, what I'm trying to do is the roofing, because I'm like, how's the roofing going to be? I knew I wanted glass roofs for certain parts of the high school. I was trying to figure out those iconic corridors in the high school, like where are those going to go? Because there are also things that I wanted the high school to have to be a high school. Like, you want those long corridors. So as you can see, this is another checkpoint, 7 hours. The floor plan has completely changed. I've given in a little bit. So the library's on the left where it should be. This is a bit more accurate to that fan-made floor plan on the which I showed you earlier. And as you can see, the roofing is really starting to work out well. We're putting in glass roofs where we can, just to add a bit of interest to the building, and also because it's accurate. I know that the cafeteria does have a glass roof, and also the library has a glass roof, like a circular one, because I remember in the season 1 finale of Buffy, that's how she kills the master. She throws him through the roof and he gets impaled on like a metal thing, and that's how he gets vanquished. So at this point, as you can see, I cut a lot out because the high school's in a lot more of a final state. It took me it took me days. Like, I was looking at the OBS recordings and they're dated. Like, there was like a 2 or 3 day gap where it was me figuring out what that floor plan is. And I'm really happy with how it turned out, because I think even if you're not a fan of the television show, I think the thing is, it looks like a real high school in that it's both symmetrical and not symmetrical. If you're standing out in the back of that courtyard, it would look symmetrical, even though from an architecture point of view, because we can see from above, it actually isn't symmetrical. It's, one side's bigger than the other. But I think because of that imperfection, the school feels very real and lived in. And that's another thing I wanted the high school to be. I didn't want it to be a supernatural high school. Obviously, if you have the vampires pack, you have the werewolves pack, you can turn it into a supernatural high school because I've built it for you. It's from Buffy. But if you just wanted a really good high school to play in, which again was my biggest goal, it wasn't to just recreate Sunnydale High, it was to have a high school for me to play in, because I wanted a proper functioning high school, and there wasn't really on the gallery that I was happy with. So that's why I was really happy with this, because even if you're not a fan of the show or into supernatural stuff, it just functions as a really great lived-in high school. Like, it's a very American, like, it's not like an Irish high school at all, but it looks old-fashioned. So you can see me doing the brick. So that's the master. He was the big bad of season 1, and that was when Buffy throws him through the glass ceiling. And that's why we have that same glass roof. And it actually turned out to be perfect in terms of continuity for the high school, because we actually know in that specific spot there's going to be the bell tower, again from the Earshot episode of season 3 where Buffy, there was a shooter on that bell tower, Jonathan with the rifle, right? So it was actually perfect that I could put the bell tower there, because I had that ladder so you can climb onto the roof. So from the roof you can actually climb up to the bell tower, because that's another thing, is I wanted to have actually kind of a lot of gameplay. I wanted your Sims to be able to go up to those areas and take pictures. You can go up there with a crush. There's a lot of storytelling opportunities. So that's why I think I'm considering this a perfect high school. I'm not saying it's aesthetically the most beautiful high school, but I'm saying in terms of gameplay, it's good. And also making sure that there's exits on both sides, meaning that there's actually like a proper walkway from the car park to that side of the building, or from that side of the building to the auditorium. That was really important to me. So what we're doing now is decorating the infamous Sunnydale High Library, which is obviously the Scooby Hangout for seasons 1 to 3. I was both loyal and not loyal. I added in elements that looked good in The Sims, like a ladder up to this part of the library. But there's actually no reason why to go up there, and I'm actually not 100% sure the ladder works. It might be just there for aesthetic, and I remember for that reason there's only fake uninteractive clutter up there. But that ladder there to that little balcony thing, that is accessible, and I made sure I play tested that. And so I'm just adding in things to make the library look interesting, but still putting in the fundamentals that when you look at it, you're like, oh, that is the Sunnydale Library. Even if I added in elements or changed elements to make it fit better in The Sims 4, Getting the werewolf cage was interesting because, again, I didn't want this to be a too occulty high school. I wanted something that would actually look okay if you wanted to play this as a normal save. So I used a cats and dogs door because I wasn't going to use the get to work pack for those jail cell doors. But I thought the one from Cats and Dogs looks fine. I actually put a bed and a dresser in, and I was actually really surprised. A lot of students will use the bed because high school is a very temperamental place for these Sims. They have a lot of like emotion. And if a lot of them get angry or sad, they'll go cry it out in the bed. So I actually, during my play testing, which you'll see towards the end, you'll see a lot of Sims actually use that bed. It's quite surprising. I think more Sims go in there to use the bed than to actually use the library, which I think is quite funny. But yeah, I'm trying to, do the library now to make it look like the one from Sunnydale High. Again, for me, it's a real mixture of making something that was both going to be really functioning just as a great high school, and then if you are a fan of the show, that you would kind of appreciate all these Easter eggs. And I really wanted something detailed. I'm going to touch on this later when I'm showing you what the final looks like. And I'm going to show you the playtesting in this video. That's something new for me. I want to show you how I was playtesting it. But the things I'm kind of looking out for is making sure it's super well decorated so that if you're taking selfies with your classmates, the background always looked cool. So if you're taking selfies in the library or anywhere else, it would look cool. I even added in this decor, this mural. And I'm just adding in all these extra details to make the library look super lived in. And again, it doesn't use too many packs. For such a detailed build, I'm super happy that I didn't use too many packs at the end. You can come in here, do your homework. If you have Sims, the Sims 4 get together, you can have a club, like a teenager homework club. You guys can all come here and do your homework. You do have to wait for the school day to end because that's considered an event. But your Sims will hang around in the high school from 3 o'clock until 6 p.m. before they're all kind of asked to leave, and you can kind of get your study, and then if you have the get together expansion packs for the club feature. So I'm just adding in all these decorations that kind of both make it look like a jail cell, so you have like that barrier, but it doesn't really look like a jail cell. It can really go either way depending on how you want to play the game. And then up here, these are the club rooms. I had no idea what to put in these rooms, but we knew it was a 2-story building, and I was like, let's make them look really old, dirty carpets, old brick. So for that reason, I was like, you can put like, the computer club in here. We can put in like, a university table, ping pong table, I think. So I kind of put in like, all the fun activities are in like, the room that the teachers don't want to use. It's like the underfunded part of the school. So it's really old fashioned. It hasn't been renovated. So again, from a gameplay perspective, your Sims will actually use these areas. Before class, you might spot a few teenagers on the computer. You're going to spot a few teenagers in the gym building on the treadmill. These are actually trafficked areas, which I'm super excited about. These aren't just going to be dead spots. And that was the trick. I think it was making sure that the high school wasn't too spread out, because I think if these objects are too far away from the Sims, they're not going to get the whim to use them. Whereas I think if the Sims are, for example, in the classroom on the 2nd floor, they're in such proximity to a computer, I think that's why they want to use it. But at this point now we're building like the extension, and this is basically the aquatic center. So this is from the Go Fish episode of Buffy season 2. It could be episode 19. I don't think it's 20. It's either 19 or 18 of season 2. And this is the one obviously where Xander goes undercover on the swim team. And I was like, I really wanted there to be an aquatic center, not just because it was in the television show, but I think because if your Sim's house doesn't have a swimming pool, it's a great opportunity for your teenage Sim to learn to swim and kind of get that hobby of swimming. So I was like, we should obviously have an aquatic center. I will say though, Sims won't be swimming in it unless it's your Sim, but the Sims will go upstairs to use the gym. So at this point, guys, I've been building for a very long time. As you can see, I cut a lot out. Like you see, I've done the garden at the back of the high school because there was actually no point showing guys those little details. Of the video would have went on for ages, but I genuinely must have spent over 16 hours building this. Must have been, because I was looking at the time codes on OBS and there was like huge chunks of time when I wasn't recording. So even though I think I only recorded about like 9 hours of footage, there was these huge gaps where like I'd go from having like a completely different floor plan, and by the time I had the floor plan, it was completely decorated. And I know in between that time I was playtesting it too. So by the time I was done playtesting, it was like definitely about 16 hours of building and playtesting. And that was before the final playtesting when I was just enjoying the build. But yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out. I was kind of pack limited when it came to the gym. It wasn't exactly how I wanted it to look, but because it was double story, I needed to go with a double story wallpaper because I didn't want to use a trim. And you can see I'm using the university showers. I think those are base game lockers, which are different to the high school lockers because those aren't for books. Those are just like for changing clothes. And just putting in those different things you probably would see in a more modern aquatic center, like, the trophy case. Here comes all the gym equipment. Also, while this is at the back of the high school, when you get the whim at the start of the day to go use the workout equipment, your Sims can go there and accomplish a task and make it to their class in time, because I made sure that there's really easy access. Your Sims can walk straight through the high school at different routes to get there as quick as possible. It's not like there's just only one exit out the back of the high school. There's many exits out of the high school. So your Sims can get to that aquatic center quite easily. And I was really happy with how that turned out in my playtesting. But yeah, I think it was just getting the colour. The outside of it changes to like a bright red. Oh, one thing I wanted from the swimming pool section were like bleachers? I think they're called bleachers. But like we don't really have them in The Sims 4, and the ones outside of the high school, those fake ones your Sims can't use. So I was like, to kind of give the idea, we'll use platforms because your Sims can climb up the ladder and sit up there and get a better view down. So I mean, that's mostly a storytelling thing. At this point though, I'm showing you what objects I am using in the build. As you can see, it is only Discovery University, Seasons, and Cats and Dogs, and obviously high school years. I use like 2 things from Desert Lux, but those aren't necessary, and the guitar is just for the recreational room. So what you're first watching is the first playtest that I've done. So I think at this point I had just finished the build and was playtesting, and during this first playtest I was still adjusting different things in the build, but I kind of wanted to show Buffy Summers going into the high school and what that would look like, because again, you're probably watching this as a fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So I made a sim version of her. I know, I found her from the gallery. It was a really good one. And I put her in it, and I had her live for a little Sunnydale High School experience. But yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out. I added different things to make the hallways more interesting, like bricks at the end of the hallway. In the television show, it's pure concrete, but I thought it looked boring in The Sims. And as I said before, it was really important for storytelling that when your Sims were taking selfies, that their surroundings always looked really interesting. This is the first classroom. And on the first playtest, this is on the ground floor. This was called Classroom 1. But every time I play tested it in every different save file from then onwards, the classroom that your sim will go to is likely going to be on the second floor. But don't worry, you ultimately end up using both classrooms because exam prep will always be held in Classroom 2. So you can kind of see students going from Classroom 1, when you guys get a Classroom 2, to the cafeteria. I think it looks a lot like the television show, but at the same time, it's its own thing. As you can see, most importantly, it's functioning as a busy trafficked high school. As you can see, there are Sims in those main areas. You can see there are Sims even going in to use the computers. There's Buffy, she's probably just joined a computer club. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think the high school looks super lived in, and that's why I was super excited about it. There's decorations anywhere. I don't know how well this will run on low spec computers. I didn't use a lot of objects, but there are a lot of decorations. Because in my mindset, if you actually look at the high school from a top-down approach, it actually looks quite sparse. There's actually like a lot of room for your Sims to write. There isn't a lot of ground objects besides like desks and chairs. But what I've done is I've really furnished the walls with a lot of paintings, hanging, decals and, signage on the wall, lights on the wall, certs on the wall. And that makes the high school look busy, even though the ground is probably really empty for your Sims to write easily. This is what the high school looks like at the end. You can see the bell tower up there on the top left. I was really happy with how this turned out, and as you can see, it's well lived in. There is one recreational room I made for your Sims. It's also very old-fashioned. Your Sims can go in there, play chess, they can paint if they want to do that after school activities. Again, if you get together, you can use the club feature. You can see that there are pathways from the car park and from the auditorium that lead back to the high school. So it does look like it really combines well together. And then this is Buffy using the swimming pool at nighttime. This can be a great way to get your athletic skill up. I think that looks really cool as well. It looks modern, it looks renovated. It looks like it's from a different time period compared to the Art Deco high school, because this is like a new building they've added on, and I made it red at the end. This is my second playtest. This has been my own legacy save file when I got the high school pack. And as you can see, the first classroom is on the second floor. Which I actually think is a really cool thing, because it means that you're kind of going on both floors and there's a reason for you to use the second floor, and it's very intuitive. And as you can see, there's a really great flow of your Sims going down the stairs and going to the cafeteria. So even though the high school looks super big, it's actually in quite small spaces that your Sims can go from A to B and back to A. Because that's the flow of the high school if we break it down. It's you go to class, you go eat lunch, you go back to class, and it's in a really small actual corridor that your Sims do that, so they'll never be late. So even though it looks like a huge high school and every part of the map is being tracked by students, because there's 2 classrooms, that's why they have to use that long corridor full of lockers, all parts of the high school are being used up, and yet it's really playable. And that was my goal of the Let's Play. And as you can see, if you did look at that from a top down, there's actually not much going on the ground. The lino tiles make it look busy, but most of the decorations are on the wall, so it looks visually interesting. This is an after school table tennis room, and as you can see, when you take selfies with your classmates, oh, I'm just looking at these Sims. This is from my 2nd generation legacy. They're long dead, by the way, because this has been recorded 2 months ago. But I'm getting nostalgic, and it's distracting. I'm like, oh, I remember this gay couple, and they died. Because I play on short lifespan, which is really funny. But this is them in the library. It can be a super cute place. Go do your homework, take some selfies. Look, Sims do use the bed. I told you Sims would use the bed. And again, I've added in a heap of decorations so that when you put your selfie camera pictures up on your wall, the backgrounds are interesting. They're not just like, bland white, walls that you'd see in the EA build. And yeah, like the Sims do use it. Oh, this is the basement, because there is a basement in Sunnydale High, but it's like a creepy doll house or something from base game, but actually it's nothing too occulty. And I put your Sims can study for exams in that area. Oh yeah, there's lights on the bell tower, so even when it's snowing, this is a snowy day, it still looks cool. And this is what the high school looks like in the snow. So again, there was a lot of play testing, and again, I was really changing things up until the last minute. So if you do have the City Living pack, I would recommend you actually go into my gallery and download the 2nd build, which is just called the Better High School, because that has a basketball court in it. But if you don't have City Living, go and download Sunnydale High, which is the build you're actually seeing right now. But the Better High School just has a few more things in it from the City Living pack, and I might have changed some things from my play testing from when I published the first build. So you can kind of see this is kind of the flow of the high school. I love how busy the classrooms look. They're full of, student art. You will find students in here using, that's the principal. Oh yeah, because it's a legacy challenge on a short lifespan. The other principal died. But I think it is funny, there was a queue of Sims trying to hop onto that bed and cry it out. I think that's such a funny thing. But yeah, you can totally come here and do your homework after class. I put in the good school trait or something, so I think your Sims do their homework quicker in this area. But I think even taking selfies in like the hall or in the front of this high school, like in the lobby area, looks cool. There's vending machines. This is very accurate to the Buffy television show. I know that for sure. So I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I hope you guys really enjoy this build. Do drop a comment down below and let me know if you're going to play with this. This is my 4th playtest. Like I was really playtesting this. I see I'm running it over and over again to make sure that I was catching things. Are Sims behaving weird in different situations? Like one example before this video is over is that a lot of Sims, like when you're building a principal's office, a lot of people are very tempted. You can see this is what the ground view looks like. See the way the ground is actually quite clear, so it's quite easy for your Sims to route around. Yet when I was showing you all that footage, the high school still looks very busy because of all the wall decorations. But the one thing I did from playtesting, and this was one that stood out to me, was I removed seats from the principal's office besides the principal's desk chair. And that's because I was finding a lot of Sims would want to come into the principal's office to sit down, because I guess you put in fancier chairs, and I think your Sims would have a whim to sit on comfortable chairs. But like, who would ever sit in their principal's office? I'd rather die if I had to do that as a teenager. So I actually took the chairs out of the principal office besides the one desk chair that the principal would sit on. So that kind of gives you an idea of the play testing I'm doing. I'm really watching for everything. Where are Sims getting tripped up? Particularly because Sims love to do group activities. Oh, so this is my Sim doing a promposal. This is again actually my generation's Let's Play. So again, there's like a lot of gameplay opportunity, a lot of storytelling opportunity, a lot of great places you can take selfies. It's not like I had to click on Sims, go here, go here, go here and take a selfie. You can take a selfie anywhere, and it has like a really cool background, and you'll always remember what part of the high school you're in where that selfie was taken. Everything kind of has its own identity. There's even a card table out there at the back. Yeah, I love how this high school turns out, and it'll use the stairs to come out, to the sports field. It's all usable. Your Sims will traffic it. I mean, I really topped this out in terms of making something that would both look like Sunnydale High and something that was really playable. So I'm super happy with how this turned out. It's on the gallery, no mods, no CCs. You saw the items it uses from the packs earlier on in the video. I was really happy with how it turned out, and I think it integrates well. Oh, this is my Sim coming home. Like, this is actually my proper personal legacy challenge. But yeah, I'm going to leave it off here. Do subscribe if you enjoy the video. Stay tuned. I'm going to do like an improv machinima let's play type thing. And that's going to be dropping on my channel next. So subscribe and stay tuned for that. It's really funny. There is a high school element to it. And you're running a dog cafe. I'm using a mod that there is a mod for that to run like a live-in cafe. Do stay tuned for that. But other than that, I hope you're keeping safe and well. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye.